Okay, we are taking a look at Dr. Tronic's Project Heatstrike, and yeah, I'll get the game running again. So this was your semester project, the first game that you fully built in Unreal, right?
Yes.
So what were the main objectives of this semester? Like, what were the main skills you were trying to demonstrate that you had learned in using the Unreal Engine?
The main features that we had to do were gameplay, not gamepad support was one of the features. So everything should work with a controller, but it didn't do too thorough play testing. Then we also had to have a collectible, so that's why the vials are there. I didn't have any idea what to do with them, but they were a requirement.
Okay.
And then also some kind of enemy, which like some way to die, so the lasers are there for that reason. And the rest was just like basic stuff, having a start menu and end screen and well, a kind of game loop.
Yeah, so I regret to say that it seems like there's no way to advance the dialogue using a gamepad.
Oh yeah, that's possible.
But otherwise,
I see Dark Demon Gamer talk about the lore of this game. Yes, there is quite a lot more lore or backstory than is actually inside the game. Because this is part of the lore of my other game, Project Frostchatter. So the story developed over both of these games. I didn't manage to put much story into the game to like experience, but I have more written down, so the characters are more fleshed out, and I could bring them back for future projects as well.
sounds good. Yeah, it's neat. Did you get in? 'Cause I know that it's like you worked together with Escavator, and he was really into the idea of like a shared universe between all your games. Were you kind of inspired by that in trying to tie together these two projects at least?
Yeah, definitely. So seeing Excavator pull up a lot of lore when I developed the game with him together was really awesome. Just him presenting all the lore and the games kind of wrote themselves, the story. So this is what I'm doing as well now. I have this story that I'm writing between games, and then with the characters I have and stuff, I can make games.
Nice. So if you were to integrate some of that story like into this game, do you have an idea for how you might tackle that?
I don't have an idea yet. I might wanna do a game about this universe in 1 year again. My next semester project, I already have a different idea, which is not gonna use this universe, but I do have some plans for this specific scientific outpost. This is a scientific outpost, Sadira, and it's on a desert planet. And on this planet, also some anomalies, some weird creatures, which I might want to do a kind of turn-based battle game in a year.
Ooh, that's fun. I love uh, turn-based sorts of games in general. Like Into the Breach is definitely a favorite of mine. So I'd be more than
And
happy
that's the kind
to.
of idea I have. And the probably main character in that game would be a scientist, Elanda, because she's the like main person that's in control of the armory and the weapons on this outpost.
Got it. So yeah, it seems like Dark Gaming Gamer's question about adding enemies, like I can understand why, like enemies in a 3D game can be very difficult to do well because what do they do? Do they behave like Goombas and just kind of like waddle along the ground towards you? In 3D space, it's very easy to avoid them. Like, I don't know. Do you have any ideas for how? Like, I assume there's a reason you didn't add moving enemies to this other than those laser beams.
Yeah, I had an idea for a like turret that just aims at you, and if it aims at you too long, it starts shooting like Portal style. These sentry turrets. A lot of this game was inspired by Portal as well, just the aesthetic wise.
Yeah, the idea of
But
moving
otherwise, I
between. Oh, sorry. Go
don't
ahead.
have any good idea for a smart enemy, because that can be really hard. Like, it has to be dumb enough that it's fun to fight against, but smart enough that it's a challenge. And yeah, that's difficult to pull off.
Oh, somehow I managed to. So I guess there's actually no point in collecting the vials then, huh?
There's none.
So as much as the game says like, oh, you go grab the vials, I can just completely ignore them, and there's no reason to. If I miss a jump or something, I don't need to go back and get them. Did you have any idea in mind for what those could signify? Like if you had more time?
I did have an idea. For one idea would be that the blue vials are just Dr. H acknowledges that we collected the vials and may make some comment about it, and the red hidden vials would be hidden messages sent by other people on the station to get more lore or story into the station. Like, is it really a nice and clean robot building station, or is there some evil stuff going on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I that's actually the suggestion I was going to make, is that if you want to have collectibles in your game that don't connect to anything larger, but it's also a good opportunity to like inject, like maybe these are, everyone's favorite data pads that you're finding, or otherwise just like, I don't know, transmissions, something like emails you're picking up. I don't know how you, like, what are you physically picking up? Did you save your email to a USB stick? I don't know. It is, I think that Horizon Zero Dawn is really guilty of that, of just like apparently everyone leaving these data pads around, and like, why are there so many? Does everyone just use a data pad to write a single email and then leave it?
Yes. Time to drop this USB stick here.
Yeah. Whip. Fell all the way down. I guess one thing that I would recommend, if you are going to do controller support in the future, especially for a platformer, specifically a platformer where you have a camera that you need to control, it's nice to put the controls on the bumpers, because then you can keep one finger on the camera to move it around. Oh gosh, okay. You can keep your thumb on the right stick to move the camera around, while keeping your using like one bumper as jump and then the other button as either the dash or the hover.
Okay.
Just because right now I have to sort of tilt the camera, and it's mostly possible. I can just line the camera up in the way that is going to be ideal for the jump that I'm about to make, and then execute on it. But if there were ever a situation where you would want to like move the camera while you're doing a jump, then I overshot it.
I guess that
Wait.
makes sense.
You
Just
can...
while playtesting, no one used the controller, so
Right.
no one gave me controller feedback.
Yeah. And again, like that's not necessary for a 2D platformer. It's just curious. Can you actually just make this jump? Oh, you can. You don't need to use the platforms coming out of the walls at all.
Oh, interesting. I thought it was difficult enough that you had to at least make the first jump.
Achievement. Have you stumbled across a game called Antichamber? Oh yeah, plays with the minimalist vibes that are similar to the art direction in your game. And also Hello Cave Dens. Sorry?
Wait, I'm googling Antechamber.
Oh yeah, I think it is also like a Portal-esque puzzle, first-person puzzler type game, if I recall correctly.
Oh yeah, I see. I know that game, but I haven't played it. But I've seen it on YouTube.
All right. So, what aspect of using Unreal did you find like the most challenging?
Okay, there were a lot of things. The first thing is Unreal is like 10 times more gigantic than Unity, it feels like. Because there's so many specialized tools and everything opens up a new window, and that window has 5 different sub-windows and 7 different tabs, and it's easy to get lost in that. So a lot of time was just, okay, how do I get there? I know I have to like do some collision stuff, but where are the collisions? I don't know where they are.
Oh,
because everything has its own like window. Just every object in the game you can open an entirely separate editor window for collision editing.
wow.
And it's really cool, but it's overwhelming for a solo developer. So that was a big challenge, just navigating the engine. It's also, Unreal has everything integrated. I don't think you need any external tool if you're using Unreal. Like, not really. I mean, external tools are better, but you can model inside Unreal, you can animate inside Unreal. It's all kind of possible, so it feels bloated at first sight.
Just
And
because.
also,
Sorry, go ahead.
no, but you go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say just it feels bloated because it's so fully featured.
Yeah, definitely. And everything is on by default.
Mm.
Just a lot bigger than Unity, which is if you start at bare bones and then you can load packages in. Yeah, and another thing is Unreal doesn't throw as many warnings and errors as Unity does.
Hmm.
If I do something just slightly inefficient in Unity, Unity usually throws me a yellow warning with, yeah, that works, but it's depreciated or something.
Deprecated.
Deprecated, oh.
Yeah.
But Unreal sometimes just does stuff to fix it itself.
Hmm.
So there was a bug that was in for 3 months that I didn't know was in. That if the sounds that are playing at the same time, there's a limit that is reached, it starts deleting random sounds in the scene.
Huh.
And I didn't know it was doing that until 2 weeks before the deadline, where someone checked us and said, hey, my jetpack doesn't have any sounds. And then I looked over them while they streamed, and it turned out the moving platforms didn't have sound either. And I didn't know Unreal was just deleting some sounds because the limit was reached. And I feel like the editor should tell me that, hey, the limit was reached. I've started to delete some sounds, but it doesn't tell me that. I just have to know that.
Yeah, that's really strange. That that's just the default behavior. It doesn't have the ability to queue up additional sound instances.
That is just the default behavior.
Hmm.
I did some debugging stuff. Unreal has some cool debugging tools where you could actually see the sound from where they come from and how far they are hearable, all just rendered inside the engine. And there I could see that the footsteps are at some point starting to delete other nearby sounds. Which, now that I know this, is easy to fix because you can just... Now it's when the footsteps are finished playing, they delete themselves, but just figuring that out was... It's the kind of error that happens the first time and never again.
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting though. I imagine that a lot of people run into that exact same bug just because it's so unusual.
Possibly. Okay, I also found out that this feature of deleting stuff is customizable as well, so there's an entirely new window for that as well.
Oh, of course.
Something about a sound concurrency with how many sounds there. Should the specific sounds have more limits? Should it delete nearby stuff or further away stuff, or just sounds that are silent should be deleted? There's so much stuff to play around with, which is interesting because I feel like I barely did any coding in Unreal. It's just most of the stuff is already there. I just have to find where the feature is.
Acute is mentioning that if you're ever looking for any music or Foley, studying composition and audio programming at uni, would love to work on some future projects with this community.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much for making the offer. I think that is very generous of you. And I think do you have to do the music in your project yourself, or are you able to use external audio?
I can use external audio. I can use We Love Indies for free and Epidemic Sounds for free for the school projects.
But so would you be able to use somebody else's music that if they're composing music for this project?
Yes, I could use that.
Okay.
But just as an example, all the sounds here are from Epidemic Sounds. And as long as it's for school projects, I have the license for that.
Nice. Yeah, I think you've done a good job. Like you have to sort of look through a list of sound effects and pick like, yeah, this sounds like what I'm going for. I think things are pretty.
One thing that is also really awesome about Unreal, just I want to randomly mention that,
Yeah.
is Unreal's meta sounds, which
Oh.
is, I can best explain that as coding sounds like you would code a shader, like with a shader graph.
So you're like mixing different layers together and such?
You can, the entire jetpack is one meta sound, and there's 3 different starting points where I can just call events like start hover, stop hover, and do a jump boost. And then there's an entirely different node system where I can say like when start hover is called, play this sound at this position, and when it reaches this time frame, then loop back and stuff, and it should loop until I call the stop hover event.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you're able to like dynamically mix these different sound effects that are like sort of layered together and tied into the character state machine.
Yeah, and these events can be called from anywhere, and they can also communicate with each other. So it feels like programming a shader, but with sounds.
That's really cool. I mean, it's definitely a nice feature. So like having come from Unity and getting familiar with Unreal, do you think there's anything about Unreal's way of doing things that you prefer?
Definitely the sounds are better. Like meta sounds is awesome. Otherwise, I guess what's also cool about Unreal is most of the framework is already there. You don't need to program a game manager or something, because there's already the game mode that is always active, that handles some logic. I guess that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I can imagine that being
I
useful.
still don't know my entire opinion about Unreal.
But you've had a lot more experience with Unity at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have about 6 years experience in Unity and now half a year in Unreal.
Yeah.
I think the next project is going to be in Unreal as well. I think after that I'd have a better understanding of it, because now even after half a year I still don't know half the stuff in Unreal.
Yeah, I
Or
imagine
like
it's
a quarter of the stuff that's included in the basic Unreal.
Yeah, I mean, I know there are still like a whole sections and chunks of Unity that I haven't touched. Like the only engine that I'd say I have like a more complete understanding of is the original like GameMaker Studio 1.4, just because I've been using it for so dang long, and like not just version 1.4, but I've been using it since the pre-studio like version 7 days. So everything new that they added to the engine, I just sort of got familiar with. So if you go through the manual and you say like, oh, you know, what does this function do? Like I know it. I know basically every function in this program, even if there are ones I don't use very often. Like GameMaker can technically do like binary file writing and whatever, and has a strict definition of arrays. You don't need to use it, but I know it's there. So I think that it's a similar situation. Like even for all the years I've been using Unity, I still don't think I have a complete grasp of anywhere near the same degree. And then Unreal I haven't even touched. So I guess
makes sense.
It's interesting because when you're first getting into game development, you're trying to evaluate the pros and cons of these different engines before you can even like sink your teeth into it and get used to using it. It's really tough.
Yeah, then the pros and cons from the outside feel a lot different when you're actually in the engine.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to address the chat real quick. Sorry, yes, Cave Dens, I did turn the game audio up, so hopefully that's audible now. Acute is mentioning the visual languages for audio programming feel a lot like things you would see under the hood in architecture and design fields. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, Cave Dens mentions the nanites functionality of Unreal 5, which is super neat. That almost convinced the sort of team lead on the city building game that I'm working on to switch to Unreal, just because the ability to like render stuff dynamically from far away was so useful for a city building project. Yeah, so, and then Dark Demon Gamer is talking about, I wish my school made me make games for school. Well, I mean, you are, Dr. Tronic, you are in a game development program in, is it a university or?
It's kind of a private school, I guess, university as well.
Right, yeah, I know that those mean different things. Like, even here in Canada, there's more emphasis on university, but colleges are more common in the United States. And anyway, you are
It's
in
a private
post-secondary.
school type.
Right. The point is you are in post-secondary education. This is like a vocational thing. You are paying to
Yeah.
go to this education, right?
Yes. Paying for that. I'm already done with school. This is just, I want to pursue game dev professionally, so I found this private school and now I'm attending that.
Right. Yeah, the Nanites demos, viewing foliage was crazy. I haven't even seen the foliage demo. I've only seen the city demo. University and college are interchangeable in the US. That's the impression that I got. In Canada, it's a bit more like you can only get a degree from a university, and then colleges are more for like trades. I remember there was something like that, but. So how many years is the program that you're in right now?
3 years.
Okay. And are
There's
you
6 semesters, and every semester is a different focus point. Like first semester is 2D platformers, second semester is a adventure game. Third semester, which is this game now, was a 3D platformer. And then the fourth semester is going to be a puzzle game. So my next game is going to be a puzzle game. A 3D
Nice.
puzzle game in Unreal.
all right? And then, so you said 6 semesters?
Yes.
Okay, so as of finishing this semester, you're basically just halfway done with your program.
Yeah, I'm now halfway done. And
Nice.
the 5th and 6th semester is gonna be, I can choose myself what I want to do, and I can choose the engine I want to do.
Okay, so they try to give you
The program is kind of 1 year Unity, 1 year Unreal, and then 1 year you know everything, now show what you can, with the help of the teachers and people that work in the industry that come on the school.
Nice. Oh, we got some excitement for your upcoming puzzle game. I mean, absolutely, it's going to be here on the stream. I assume it's going to be shared on itch.io as you usually do. I would love to see a version of even this game where you just unlock all the abilities and you have all of them from the start, just to like mess around with how quickly you can get through the game when you have all of your abilities.
Yeah, I guess that would be cool.
Is there anything about this particular project that you'd want to like go back and tweak, or is it just kind of like it's done, moving on?
I'm just gonna let this project rest because, as always, when you start a first project, an engine you have never used, during the time I learned Unreal, I noticed how much things that I did wrong at the start. So the whole base of this game is not maintainable anymore.
Oh yeah.
The way all the levels are loaded in dynamically as you play, so not all the levels are there at the same time because the light causes performance issues and so on.
Right.
But that also means that I couldn't bake the light correctly, so it's all real-time lighting, and that's also why the performance is so expensive.
Oh, I see. So I mean,
So
have you learned how to properly bake the lighting since then?
I have not, but this is something that I should look at. But I know that if I wanted to add that into this project, I kind of have to redo all the levels. I could probably just copy and paste them, but it's just everything would have to be done. All the levels would have to be done from scratch.
Right. Because I imagine if nothing else, you could probably copy paste the geometry, just maybe not some of the collider mesh. I really have no idea how Unreal breaks that kind of stuff up. Are the colliders baked into the geometry that we're seeing?
Most of the stuff is just a cube collider, and I should switch to Lumen. Yeah, I'm using Lumen. This is all Lumen kind of real-time lighting. I don't need to bake the light. Maybe I don't know enough about that. I'm responding to Cave.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, That's so. Wait, when I turned the lighting up to fancy, and then the whole stream started lagging out super badly. That's why, is because everything, all the lighting is completely real time.
Yeah, I also don't know if a cinematic is meant to be usable in games, because none of the games that were made this semester were usable in cinematic mode.
Wow.
So I don't know if that's just something for rendering, because you can also render movies in Unreal, and maybe that's cinematic is just for rendering stuff.
So those were just different lighting presets that were part of the engine.
Yeah, Unreal has 5 different lighting presets that you can just kind of put in without any work. The whole graphic setting stuff is just one node.
Oh wow, that's really handy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were getting pretty much literally just film frames at that point. Well, there's no collision mesh on the top of this pod.
I know.
I just thought it would be funny if I could stand on it, but I guess I cannot. Well, I can stand on the back of this, so there's just no collision mesh on the very middle of it. Oh, that is legitimately a good trick you can use to skip like half this level. Because you can get on top of this pod and then get up to this platform from there.
Yeah, you can also jump on the light on the pillar, the red light, and also skip a lot with that as well.
The red light? Oh, you can stand on that?
Yes.
Okay, wow. So there's, yeah, so it looks like the strategy for this level, and I need to not stand on that pad now. So you start the level, you jump up to here, dash over to here, jump on this light. Oh, I messed it up. But yeah, you can beat this level like incredibly quickly. There are some really fun shortcuts you could discover. So was that stuff that you found out in testing, but we're just like, it's fine, leave it?
This is kind of planned. I mean, I know about that. It's just the average player isn't going to see it, so I didn't bother just manually fixing that. There's also another bug with the hover mechanic that I know exists, but I left it in because no one's going to find that, and it's fun if you know about it. It's if there's coyote time for like a 10th of a second. If you activate the hover while coyote time and then jump during the coyote time, you get infinite hover. Like just, you fly straight to the ceiling.
Oh, okay, hang on. So, in coyote time, oh, there we go. Yeah, wow.
Yeah, that exists, but no one is gonna notice that during normal gameplay.
No, it's difficult to trigger as well.
So I just left it in for a fun little feature about people that know about it.
Well, there we go. I mean, that is definitely the fastest strategy to clearing the level if you can trigger it properly. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, Dark Demon Gamer, as Tarnik was saying, this, like, the foundational code of this game is probably not viable to continue development of, but I don't know, has it made you think about developing a 3D platformer anytime in the future?
I don't know. I mean, the one thing that works good is the player character. The code is well maintained and was also overhauled as I learned more, because the player character is important. But the rest of the game could need some serious overhaul. I think. I mean, I wasn't much of a platformer personally before, but now building a 3D platformer, also having built a 2D platform.
Yeah, the trigger again. You're supposed to activate the hover while you walk off the ledge in coyote time?
Yes, if you do it too early, the hover doesn't activate because it's still on the ground.
Right.
If you do it too late, the coyote time's over.
Okay, so it is a really small time window. And then do you have to jump?
Second.
Do you have to jump as well, or just hit the coyote time in the right time window?
Jump as well.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not something... Oh, there we go. I just had to hit both inputs at the same time. But yeah, Acute, for someone who is a developer of games myself, and someone who like built a game that is essentially centered around speedrunning, that being Worlds Within Worlds, I'm definitely of the opinion that as long as there isn't some technique that is like annoyingly difficult to do, I think it's cool to leave it in. Like, I don't. If I was to take an analogy of the recent like GDQ that I saw, there's one insanely hard trick in one of the Mario 3 speedruns where there's this massive sort of chunk of the level that you're supposed to go into a door, like down here. This little. Can we get the solid fill? Come on. Oh, sometimes I wish paint. Can I put the color black on this color? Black. Jeez. Yeah, so you have to like jump from a pipe or something and then align Mario's sub-pixel position such that he like clips into a tiny seam between the geometry, and then that carries you through to the other side, thus skipping the entire level. Like, that kind of minutia is so hard to pull off, and is not like, it's going to be an absolute run killer. Like, if you think about how difficult it is to do a maneuver like that, and you're in the middle of a game, and you know you're like maybe 20 or so minutes into a run, and then you try to nail this incredibly hard trick, like, that's the kind of thing that I think should be fixed, because I don't want to stress speedrunners out that much and having to perform some really hard technique like that. But pretty much everything else, like, especially if it's easy to do once you know how to do it, and it isn't something that someone's going to trigger by mistake and then therefore have a bad play experience if they're just trying to play the game casually. It's that sort of like fine line, that sweet spot that you're going for in terms of what I will and won't fix in a game. So, hope that gives that's sort of my perspective on the whole deal. Oh, I missed the opportunity to say goodbye to Cave Dens, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, Dr. Tronic, have you done much in the way of speedrunning or watching speedruns?
Watching speedruns, I do like to watch some speedruns on YouTube. And speedrunning myself, I only speedrun your game, Worlds Within Worlds.
No, that's true. You have one of the records, like, you're pretty high up on the leaderboard, if I recall. You have a better time than me, that's for sure. Well, I'm glad that even if you don't, you're actually third place on the leaderboard.
Oh, I'm still third place.
Yeah, it's yeah. No one's done a run anytime recently. Unfortunately, I guess I haven't had time to publish any new levels or updates to the game, so seems like the impetus to do new runs has kind of dried up. But yeah, I mean, a solid sub 6 run, edging out all these like near 6-minute runs. Anyway, Acute mentions, I think the best example I can point to is Titanfall 2 routes when it comes to a balance between difficulty/accessibility in runs. Haven't played or seen better. I really need to check out Titanfall 2. I think there was a time that I signed up for like an Epic free month trial thing, and then I didn't play Titanfall 2, and then I got to try Microsoft Game Pass for free, and I didn't try Titanfall 2, and people keep mentioning Titanfall 2. It's like, I need to make the time to try this.
Titanfall 2 is awesome. I just recently replayed it on Steam.
Nice. So, what would be really cool, that would be stress them out on... Hang on. Dark Demon Gamer mentions, would be really cool game that would stress them out on purpose. A game that makes you do pixel-perfect glitches to beat the game would be insane but interesting. I don't know about that. Like, the more I think about game design and the whole field and practice of game design, and I listened to a really cool podcast actually called Designer Notes, which features interviews with some really like well-known prominent game developers. Let me just hit the button here so that it shows up on my... Here we go. So It's going to be backwards, but there you go. Designer notes. That's what to look for. The prevailing attitude among developers is be generous to the player. Be kind to them. Because there are going to be things in your game that just don't work. And you want them to work, but they just don't. There are going to be things that, like bugs or glitches that upset the player and interfere with their enjoyment. And there are going to be these like crazy pixel perfect jumps and such that you are going to inevitably find in a game. Like as I mentioned, like in this game, right? Like just finding out that you can stand here and then jump up to here, like getting through this level is not difficult via the geometry that's provided, the way that you're supposed to do it. But if you were trying to do this in the context of a speed run, and you were trying to like nail this trick of double jumping up here and then double jumping up here and then hover jumping onto the light and then jumping off of that, and if you get something wrong, then it's so stressful to like reset and do it all over again. And maybe, you know, you can activate that like super jump bug to go even faster. Like as the designer, I wouldn't want to enforce that on the player. So anyway, Acute mentions, please do, we'll send a link to my favorite speedrunner to the Discord. I think I missed the context for that.
The top context is about Titanfall, probably.
Oh. Also added a story to the description of the game if you want to check it. Okay, yeah, sure. Let's see. For Project Heatwave, or hang on, Heatstrike. It's not Heatwave. Where did the project name come from, by the way?
That is just because I wanted to have some similarity with my other game, Project Frost Shatter. So I just had something that's similar to that, but since it's not on an ice planet and on a desert planet, which didn't get included in the game, I call it Project Heatstrike.
Mm-hmm.
Because now instead of an ice planet, you're on a desert planet.
Yeah, I guess if you'd mentioned that, I don't think I would have known.
Yeah, there's no way to know you're on a desert planet.
There's
it's
no
in the
like,
lore, but it's not in the game.
Right. Yeah, because there's no like windows or anything to see through. Having some sort of skybox you could see outside, like a desert landscape. But I figure you want to try to limit the size of the geometry that the player can see. All right, well, if anyone has any other questions or comments they'd like to make, I guess in terms of like, how do you find like the platforming and the systems in the game so far? Because there's things that I could say, but I don't want to tell you stuff you already know. Like if you were to look at this project critically yourself, like what about it would you consider improving, or knowing that like, oh, that needs to be changed, or we need, if I could have done it this way instead?
I don't know.
Okay, I mean, is there anything in particular that you're looking for feedback on?
I mean, I guess just the general platforming feel. Like, does the player feel nice to control?
Yeah, I think so. Like, there might have been some controls that I would have mapped differently, but overall, like the actual actions and like things you can do, the ability to like slow fall and dash. I think the dash is the most like finicky to make sure that you get right. Like the double jump is pretty easy to wrap your head around. The dash, but this is kind of like a general thing for me in most games. I don't feel like I'm in control of the character when they're dashing. Oh, and then maybe just like, this is the smallest silly nitpick thing, but just having to jump up and land on the pad to end the level is such a like a tiny thing, and yet it always feels like a little awkward to have to, like, okay, I'm done the level, but I can't just walk up to this pad. I have to actually jump and land on it.
Okay. I could have done the collider maybe later.
Even if you were, like, if the collider was actually recessed into the ground and you could have simply... oh, hang on. I think this is a red vial that I didn't pick up the first time I played. Because that's a red vial that was in the game before there was even any mention of vials to collect, right?
Yes.
Okay,
It's also
so...
interesting that in potato quality it just extremely shines through the wall.
I had a feeling that was just because of potato quality. But yeah, just like, I've beaten the level and it's like, can I... No, there we go. Jetpack is a little confusing. You say it's weak, but it becomes powerful when you double jump. No, because those are two different things. There's the hover pack, which isn't powerful enough to make you fly, and the double jump is like a thruster. Yeah, as Minnie David said, it's very, very typical game logic. Like, that doesn't confuse me. Like, most games have a sort of like hover ability and then also a double jump as a separate upgrade that you get.
I mean, in game logic, or like lore explanation is that the hovers are extra thrusters that can maintain long, just weak, sustained use, and the jump boost is something that has to be charged over time and then can release everything in one burst. So that's also why you can't jump and dash at the same time, or like one after the other.
Yeah, you can actually see the color on the back of your character. Well, once I unlock it, you can.
You can also skip through the levels with HJK.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, let's skip ahead to a level where... There we go. So now you can actually see the thruster pack on your character's back. So I can... Whoa. What? I can't move forward. I can... What is happening with the controls? I'm holding left, but the character's walking towards the camera? Okay, it's behaving normally now. I don't know what happened there. Maybe the game was stuck in a like cutscene state or something?
I have no idea. That's never happened before, but okay.
Okay, so...
Interesting.
Which is the... Oh yeah, it's the level with the lasers. This is where you introduce the dash. Okay, so this is a level where you can actually see all your different abilities coming into play. So this first challenge you can actually... Yeah. So you can see the thruster pack on the character's back is like orange when it's unused, green as it's being used, and then it stays like darkened out until you can use it again. And it's the same if I sort of like do a thruster pack forward. Actually, does it change? Is it yellow when you do the thrust versus the double jump?
The dash is yellow.
Okay. Yeah, it's a really subtle detail, but it is nice when you notice it. Just a little visual signifier that you don't need to... that you can't do it again until you've made contact with the ground. But yeah, I wouldn't worry about the like jump, the like jetpack versus thruster pack distinction. Otherwise, like yeah, I think the character does feel good to control. Like there's always a balance between creating a character controller that works for a specific game environment and like building levels that fit a character controller, you know? I guess if I were to elaborate on that, I would say usually you end up working in tandem, like trying to build a game environment that is like exactly 3 character units high, and then knowing that a character can make a 3 unit high jump, or making that jump just slightly less than the character's jump height so that there's a little bit of tolerance. So you build a character controller that feels good, and then you build an environment that feels fun to explore with that character controller.
Yes. Is the robot a robot or a guy in a robot suit? The robot is a robot.
Yeah, I mean, we can... I hope your legs don't look like that, because... if they do, you need to see a doctor. It's the incredible backwards knees man. But, yeah, so the... I guess I would have liked to see a few more levels that actually did involve hazards, because that's when you really are being pushed to your limit in terms of, like, how well do you really understand these controls? Because most of the time you're just, like, waiting for elevators to move back and forth.
Yeah, I wanted to do more levels. Originally there were 20 planned levels, but yeah, after reaching the period of, okay, it's time that I need to finish this, I cut down the levels, so there's just 2 levels with hazards. They're introduced but not explored upon.
Right. Yeah. I think that's the main thing that I would have brought up as a critique, is that, like, you have these hazards that you've clearly introduced, but having, like, seeing some put together, like moving platforms and electrical things, like you need to jump over an electrical beam as the platform moves underneath it. Like, you introduce that with the little vials you need to collect, but then you don't have a level that pushes the player to make that kind of jump. Also, Gorkemli sector? I'm not sure how to say that, but thank you for the follow. Yeah, and then same thing with the lasers. Like, I don't know if it would have made sense to have both the lasers and the electrical hazards in the same space, or whether you're just sort of alternating from one to the other. Did you have level ideas that involve both?
I didn't have level ideas with both of them, but I had level ideas with, like, moving platforms that move in front of the laser, and then you have to kind of time your dashes or, like, your movement with the moving platform that is angled as a wall to get past some lasers.
So would it actually block the laser, or?
It would, yes.
Oh, okay. So is it actually like a projected beam?
It's kind of a cylinder that stretches itself across a distance that a raycast defines.
Okay, so it is defined by an actual raycast, so you can detect that collision with something that moves in front of it.
Yes. It's not that polished because I didn't end up using that feature, but it should work.
Yeah, I think Dark Demon's comment about the actual, like, walk cycle, it would have been nice if you had the opportunity to experiment more with animation blending, because being able to, like, smoothly tween from the walk cycle into, well, hang on, I mean, is it doing that, or is it just snapping between?
I mean, it is blending between idle and walk.
Okay.
Just like the style of low frame rate animation for the robot. So this snappiness is planned.
Okay. I think the main reason it might look a little strange is just because the robot is moving at a speed that is desynced from its animation. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's covering distance that its feet are skating across the ground. It's not actually, like, stepping on the ground to match the speed that it's moving in.
Yeah, okay, that is a valid point.
So I think the walk cycle is fine for something that's meant to look very mechanical, but it takes a lot of tuning to get, like, obviously you don't want to change the speed because the game's character controller is based around that, but then you just have to make sure you match the speed of the animation to match the speed that the character's actually moving through the environment. But yeah, it does look like the robot's movements are keyframed. Is that how you did it, or is it actually, like, tweening between things?
I'm not sure I understand.
Well, I just know that you can sometimes like define a starting and an ending point in most 3D animation software and allow something to like blend between them. But the movements are very sharp. Like there isn't any motion tweening. At least it doesn't look like there is. So that's why it looks like there's no auto tweening happening. It looks like it's just sort of snapping from one keyframe to another.
There's a slight lerping between the keyframes, but in general, most of the stuff is just as minimal keyframes as possible.
Right. I mean, your program, does it, like, do you have a class on animation, or is it more focused on other aspects of programming and design?
We have a Blender class with animations.
I just wanted to know, like, how much emphasis is there given to, like, animation? Like, it seems like your program is very geared towards, like, teaching you everything you need to know just a little bit to make a game, right?
Yeah, that's kind of every, like, in a week, every day is a different focus with a different person.
Yeah.
And a lot of the teachers are just people that work in the industry and are hired for half a year to teach a course.
Yeah, and I think that the, like, you could basically have somebody who's entirely dedicated to just the animations on a character, right? Like, it's, by the time you're doing everything on this project just by yourself, like, there's going to be some parts that you think are like, oh yeah, that's really my forte, the thing I'm best at, and there's other things like, well, you know, I learned how to do it, but it's not something that I feel is a strength. So it would have been like, oh, when you're doing those sort of end of term, like the capstone projects in your 5th and 6th semester, do you get to team up with other people, or are you still working on something by yourself?
We still have to do a solo project, but I don't know if that's still a thing, because I don't know how well that worked, but in the 5th semester, there is also gonna be a class project that on like Thursdays or something, everyone works on that project, so we can specialize.
Also, the sounds should be audible. Like, I keep turning it up. It's like generally pretty quiet, but like I wouldn't say any of the sound effects in this game are really like loud and in your face. They're more like pretty subtle. And also, Gorkem, please correct me on your name's pronunciation, but is it Gorkemli Sector? Is asking like how you did the animation in this very snappy style.
The animations are like no blending in Blender, just the keyframes in Blender. So in Blender it looks like a stop motion, just one walk, then directly snaps into the next. And then in Unreal, I do some linear interpolation between the keyframes.
Okay, interesting. So it's just sort of comes down to how it was animated in Blender and then how you added that like animation tweening in Unreal. That's what gives it its current effect.
Yes. In Blender it looks a lot different, but I'm doing all the like smoothing of the keyframes in Unreal.
Nice. But yeah, so I think we've gone over like most of the feedback that I have for this particular project, and yeah, so congratulations on finishing yet another semester and putting together a like solid, well-polished project. I know that you said that there might have been some more levels that you wanted to make, but overall I think everything that's here, at least like, it all holds together just fine, you know, other than the like small thing that we found, like a little hover skip you can discover. Not quite like that. It's very hard to do. Anyway, yeah, so congratulations on completing yet another project, and I'm super looking forward to seeing what you work on next.
Thanks. I'm always glad to be here.
Excellent. I'm always happy to have you. So I guess we'll sign off there, and yeah, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye bye for now.
Thanks, you too. Goodbye.
Bye bye.